Hello, and welcome to another episode of Walk the Dog Cinema. Here we are, me and the Roca. She has found a wonderful smell, and we are out and about. It's kind of June gloom, as you would call it, in the morning here, and it's still a nice day to get a walk. Probably burn off and be pretty warm, but trying to enjoy the day and see how things go. But today wanted to touch upon favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. What's your favorite Van Damme movie? We're kind of still in the action mode, trying to get through the 30 questions with different movies, see where we go. Done Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jackie Chan. Picked Van Damme because he was a 80s, 90s action star. Whether you think he's a jerk or whatever, but he definitely was one of those guys in the 80s that had a pretty good output of movies. Actually, this one was kind of weird because one of my favorites of his, Hard Target, which introduced me to John Woo, I totally dig, but it is not my favorite. Obviously, I went with Bloodsport. I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. But the thing about Bloodsport is obvious, it's the one that made Van Damme, and there's besides some of the beginning, which has some bad acting, it's actually a well-directed film. It's a pretty good martial arts film, but it's really got a good script economy to it, and it's got a nice tight package within itself, and moves along, and it is kind of those 80s films, so to speak, but it kind of also transcends a little bit of the 80s, but has a great villain, Yun Bao, from Enter the Dragon, who does his kind of Enter the Dragon fight here a little bit with a curb stomp, and overall, it when you watch it, it's kind of brings you back to 88 and that time, but also can show you what the 80s were like with martial art films, but at the same time it kind of doesn't ever age, just because you get Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and all of that stuff, and this predated all of that. Obviously Enter the Dragon did this kind of, but I like to take it that it's the karate tournament that was done, not ad nauseum, but was done here and there in the 80s and even in the 70s. And this one kind of just gave it a grounded reality, based off a true story, which ended up being complete bunk. And I always love the ending when it talks about like fastest knockout and fastest kick, and they have these stats, 72 miles an hour, and 0.12 seconds to knock someone out with a punch, and like that should have set it off right there that it was just complete bunk. But as a teenager, you saw that like, whoa, wow, this was based off a true story. Before you kind of realized Hollywood's full of crap when it comes to that stuff. But anyhow, kind of adds a nice kicker to the end of the film that just makes it kind of all the more cheesy on one level, but encapsulates kind of what we were dealing with at the 80s and everything. But and then on that level, it absolutely adds to the enjoyment of the film. So talking about Bloodsport, what's your favorite Van Damme? Let me know, and if you like what you see, please subscribe. Let's get on with the review. So late 80s Bloodsport brought in some kind of new blood within. You already had Schwarzenegger, he was huge. Stallone had been going at this for a while, but you get some new blood with Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I even think, I don't know if Don the Dragon Lee had started yet. You had Dolph Lundgren kind of doing there. Brandon Lee was just starting to, maybe about a year off with the Big Trouble, not Big Trouble in Little China, but Little Tokyo Showdown or something like that with Dolph Lundgren, if I'm not mistaken. But you know, Jackie Chan still really hadn't come over to America. You did get I forget the actor who did the American Ninja movies. Michael Dudikoff. So you had that. Chuck Norris kind of was moving away from his really gritty persona and kind of moving into like Top Dog and kind of getting to his early 90s buddy cop comedy stuff, you know, sidekicks, and he kind of transitioned into more kiddie fare a little bit, which is interesting. I don't know why the late 80s, early 90s he shifted to that, but the point being is I think he might have did Invasion USA right around here. I know he just probably came off Code of Silence, but it's kind of like the big action stars. Harrison Ford was not doing his 90s action run. He was kind of still doing Witness and some more. He did do indie again, but he still was kind of doing more like Witness-like movies, Frantic and things like that. So that was our 80s action scene so to say Bloodsport kind of came out like a firecracker, it really did. Like for I was a teenager, you know, it was one of those movies that everyone talked about just because you know, you see Van Damme doing the splits, a split kick, just some of the moves he did in the film. You know, it was kind of something that we hadn't seen. Same with Seagal doing his Aikido stuff, which was more brutal. But like from a choreographed standpoint, Van Damme was rather interesting. You could tell it was choreographed, but it just looked so cool. Like it was kind of this thing with it, you know, with his martial arts. And it's interesting now to kind of like rewatch it. I hadn't seen Bloodsport in a while. I have a martial arts background. I've been doing it for the last 7 years. Got my black belt. Still working on things in my black belt, doing black belt stuff. So kind of see Van Damme in this light a little bit with a different set of eyes. You know, I wasn't like the biggest Van Damme fan on one level, just because I kind of liked a little bit more brutal karate or a little bit more fast paced. And I always thought it was funny, like some of his stuff felt very choreographed, just because it has that kind of old 70s slowness to it, like a dance a little bit. But now training in martial arts and getting up to that level, I'm not saying Van Damme level, I'm just saying into the black belt and learning all that stuff, to see the skill involved in terms of body control, what Van Damme does in the film, is actually quite impressive. And then through that, you know, it is interesting that going at the clip that he does within the film to make sure the camera sees every bit of his moves, and I would say that with it, the rest of the film too, but really Van Damme, you know, it's actually quite skillful. You know, to do a side kick the way he's doing it, to do his roundhouse, to do his hook kicks, to do his jumping, spinning kicks and stuff, and to really exaggerate it, extend, and all that stuff. It's a crazy amount of control, people. Like, and though it looks a little corny on camera on one level, there is a level that you have to appreciate the skill involved in it. So I kind of enjoyed that aspect of it this time, where in the past it used to bother me. Now I kind of appreciate it just because of where my mind's at. So it's kind of interesting how films can change for us over the course of time, right? You have the nostalgia part of Bloodsport for me, but at the same time, there's other little things that I actually appreciated the film even more now, which kind of just cements my attitude of it being my favorite, for Van Damme. But that's one of the things. I love that it has a great villain. He's diabolical. He's kind of cartoony in that regard. I mean, he's a psychopathic killer in this thing, but obviously the movie's called Bloodsport. It doesn't really address it, but it kind of does, saying that the triads are kind of running this a little bit, or they've given it a reason to do this in Hong Kong. But the other part that I kind of really appreciated is the economy of the script. It's a movie that really shows, doesn't tell, but every kind of little detail is a payoff. When we kind of get the introduction to Van Damme going to Hong Kong, he's doing practices with his spinning kick that he, spoiler alert, uses at the end of the movie. But again, it's showing him doing this kick. He's already kind of doing it, but he's doing it really, really, really fast on a speed bag, and it's quite impressive. But again, it's showing you something that's going to pay off later on down the line. Doesn't tell you, hey, look at this, because it is kind of rather subtle in the sense of what it's setting up. But even like in his flashbacks to his training with the Shidoshi and all of that, there's an interesting concept to all of it, that basically it's setting up every one of his fights. And the movie's really economical with that. You wonder why he's getting struck with bamboo and kind of making his skin kind of steel-like or whatever, and that pays off against the Thai boxer guy. It sets up him doing the splits, and he kind of does that against the sumo guy. There's all these kind of little things in the film that you can relay back to throughout the course of it, that sets up to his fights, that sets up to his interactions with people. It does the cool 80s introduction that he kind of didn't need, but with the dim mock, where he breaks the bottom brick. It's so 80s. It reminds me of a part in First Blood with Rambo, where John Crenna is talking to Cecil, Brian Denny, and it's so 80s how they set up, bring a bunch of body bags. That's how you're gonna basically stop Rambo. And it's kind of the same concept here with Van Damme. He really hasn't fought anybody. You kind of don't, but he's gonna break this bottom brick without breaking any other bricks. It's a cool sequence. Whether it puts a smile on my face, and I just kind of dig it. But the other side of it is you get to see a young Forrest Whitaker in this, and he plays a kind of interesting side character. I like how he's always kind of brash, where the older gentleman with him is always interrupting or stopping him, and Forrest Whitaker's kind of frustrated with that. And so the acting is rather interesting in the film. It's actually, besides the young kids in the one sense, little struggle in the beginning. Not a horribly acted film. I wouldn't even say Van Damme is actually bad. I mean, there's a few parts that he's a little awkward, but overall, he doesn't do a really bad job. The reporter girl, I mean, she doesn't have a big part in the one sense, a lot of depth, but she does a pretty good job. But you also got Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds, who sadly just passed away recently, and he's great as Jackson. Again, you got Forrest Whitaker. The other actor with him as a government official is really good. I'd even say, Yun Bao, he's a great villain. He's doing his Enter the Dragon kind of thing, but at the same time, he's got a lot of presence as a villain. He looks scary. Whether he's over the top comical with it, it's still great. You want to see him get his butt kicked by the end. And they choose interesting choreography for him. and there's obviously stuff in there that you just wouldn't let someone do, like punch you and stuff, but it's all very macho and kind of ridiculous on one level, but fun nonetheless, right? So and again, you get the 80s music interludes, the fight montage with all the different styles, the capoeira and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and Thai kickboxing, and I mean it's all in there, kung fu, and it's great with that song. Overall fun. And again, like I said, it's competently directed. You get to see the fighting. It doesn't feel stagnant or staged. And what I mean by that is that you're aware of the camera. A lot of stuff like with really bad directors like Ed Wood, and I mean people who it's so bad it's good. The camera is really stagnant or static or kind of wide angle, but it doesn't know how to use the material to frame a picture. So you get a lot of like extra stuff going, not on the background, but very bare, and so it kind of looks amateurish. Like none of that is going on in Bloodsport. It's very professional looking, even though it's somewhat low budget. It was done by Canon International. So you can kind of tell there's some people that probably spoke different languages because of the dubbing, but all of that has that charm. And just talking about like the 80s, I've talked in previous where they're so big budgeted now that sometimes they don't take chances, and it's kind of interesting to see this weekend. Obsession and Backroom or whatever got first place. Movies that were made for like, one was for like $750,000 or $1 million. Another one made for like maybe a couple million. So it's cool to see movies making 180 million, and from young guys. One of the directors is like 24, the other's only 20. To have that presence, kind of indie filmmaking. So it's kind of cool, like just kind of talked about that recently, and then these two movies come out and they kind of hit. And, that was kind of the 70s and 80s in a nutshell for growing up in cinema. You had the big guys, the big dogs, but even then they would, kind of do smaller films at those to garner things or just try to attempt it, and instead of these big tentpole movies. And I'd like to see cinema kind of get back to that, away from just heavy special effects, or there's those places in movies, but even back in the day, Roger Corman did heavy special effect movies for on the cheap, and some of it's cheesy, but some of them are great, like Piranha and Battle of the Stars, which is kind of cheesy Star Wars ripoff, but it can be done. Cameron got to start with for Galaxy of Terror and Forbidden Planet or something, That's World, or but they were cheesy sci-fi films. Yeah, they're a little gory and stuff, but I'm just basing it like it wasn't these high budgets, but they kind of look good. Ice Pirates comes to mind. Why that one jumps in my head, I just remember it as a kid. Like it was kind of kooky, but that was rather low budget, and fun. There's a ton of them out there. Death Stalker, which was another kind of Roger Corman. You had your fantasy sword sorcery stuff, but I'm just saying, you had American Ninja. Like Canon did a lot of that. Terminator was a low budget film. So it could be done. I think it could be done today. It's just, just with all the crazy effects that we do, it's just, bigger isn't always better in that regard. So we'll see. But Bloodsport is one of those that I would love to see some films in that sense. Mortal Kombat did okay, but like kind of get down to a little bit more grounded like that. It'd be fun. And see how it kind of extrapolates with today's world a little bit and stuff. So it'd be interesting if anyone could pull it off. But if you've never checked out Bloodsport, check it out. It is height of the 80s martial arts craze. Does establish Van Damme, who did some pretty good movies. and established him as a star. You know, he wasn't like the big guns, but you know, he definitely had his run, so it's kind of cool. So check it out. But if you've already checked it out, let me know what you think of other Van Damme movies. Have a good one, everyone.